have issues. All right. Hey, we got Jose in here. Upload it. What doesn't some labels come? All right. So we got Jose in here. We got Adrian Kane coming in here. We're gonna have a few more people jump into the objection challenge day. We're gonna go over the framework. We are here inside the Zoom. Join us. All right. Let me just make sure I send an email to everybody. Oh, Jose, you want to record? We're gonna give the recording at the end of the day. Don't worry about it, Jose. We'll give you the recording. We'll put it inside REI Entrepreneurs Mastermind. So, all right, all right, all right. So today, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go over a few frameworks for objection handling. Jesse's gonna join here in a few. He's actually dealing with a few things that he needs to handle right now. And we're gonna go over a few objection handling scenarios. But I just really wanna share with you guys a few objections framework that I've learned over the years that have literally taken our sales to the finish line. Because one of the biggest things that happen during the sales calls or consulting calls, or however you want to call the call, is that if we don't remove objections during the discovery process, we will get objections, and we almost always will get objections. Like having objections is almost always guaranteed, 100%. But it's not whether you get objections or not, because you will get objections. Is how do you handle that, and how do you uncover the real objection, the real thing that they're telling us, right? So it's very easy to always give up when an objection comes out, because um, it's not something that a lot of people get, right? It's not something that people get in the day to day. You guys don't push enough or challenge your clients enough, your prospects enough. And it comes down to, having the authority to do so. It comes down to ultimately knowing how to understand what's their concern from. In reality, objections are actually concerns. So let's go over this, all right? So I have learned through objection handling through different type of coaches and consultants and just several people that have taught me sales. Um, so for example, Jeremy Miner uses the nice guy negotiation objection handling framework. Um, the Wolf of Wall Street, Jordan Belfort, he ultimately uses different analogies and he pushes to change some of the mind shift that people have or mindset that people have after they are ultimately getting an objection. So let's just remember what objections are. Objections are ultimately concerns. And concerns are very very common. People will have concerns at the end of the day, right? So when we have a framework that always is good to follow, then that means that we have a process that we can teach, a process that we can identify whether the objection was handled properly or not, right? So first of all, let's go over why objections happen. Objections ultimately happen because you didn't uncover something during the discovery process. As you may know, you go and do a discovery or an intro call or whatever you want to call it with the seller, and then you pass on to transition to then doing an offer or doing some sort of offer call, right? You can do that in a one cold close or two cold close or multiple cold close after doing follow-ups. But the very first part of your process, which is your discovery call, and let's go over here one example of your discovery call, is literally uncovering a few things that could come out and could kill really your deal. So let's go here, discovery call. Um, at the beginning during the discovery call, want to ultimately um, you want to ultimately uncover everything that could kill your deal. And that is called deal killers, pre-objection handling. There's a theory that there's 7 beliefs about why buyers buy or why sellers sell your house. And those 7 beliefs are, almost always truth and the same. And it could be coming from spouse, it could be coming from logistics, it could be coming from trust, it could be coming from money. There's ultimately 7 beliefs. I'm gonna share that with you over here because these 7 beliefs really help you identify which one might be the objection that you're gonna have to deal with, or why the objection came in at the beginning. Okay, so let's go over and talk about those 7 beliefs right here. Just let me just find this here. 7 beliefs. And I totally stole this from um, my one of my mentors. His name is Cole Gordon. 7 beliefs of why people buy from you or why people ultimately sell the house to you. And those 7 beliefs is it comes down from the gap that people have of where they are right now to where they need to be at. And that's what you need to uncover first during the discovery process. Here, let's go here. All right, so this is documented by Cole Gordon, right? But let's talk about the belief ladder of buyers or belief ladder of ultimately sellers that want to buy your service, which is ultimately accepting a cash offer or accepting whatever offer you have. So there's 7 beliefs that exist out there that ultimately will remove any objection during the discovery process, right? Or any deal killer, because that would be essentially a concern, right? So when you get an objection at the end of the call, when you essentially drop an offer, it's because either one, you did not uncover the pain deep enough. So the prospect must believe that they have a problem that is keeping them from getting what they want, which is ultimately selling their house. But also selling their house is just a surface level problem. So they have a deeper problem that you need to uncover. So if they have objections that ultimately are related to, for example, well, I really don't really need to sell my house, which is an objection that might be related to on motivation, or might be related to you did not uncover that thing. But since everyone knows that we need to uncover the real motivation, then that objection usually doesn't come out. But since you uncover that objection of the pain, right? You have uncovered that belief that there is pain, and you go deep into why they actually need to sell their house, then that objection is removed at the end of the call, actually, at the end of the offer process, because you have ultimately known their deep problems, the root cause of their problems, right? Which is not selling their house, which is not ultimately moving out of state, which is not um, having to give away this house for no reason, or just give the real estate investor an opportunity to talk about selling their house. That's not the real problem, right? So we always go towards pain, which is a gap between their current situation and their desired situation, right? So understanding their deeper root problems will help us really uh, remove a lot of objections that could come out related to pain, right? Their second belief ultimately is going to be doubt. So, what is doubt? The prospect must believe that they cannot fix whatever the problem is on their own, or that by attempting by to do so by themselves is going to cost them unnecessary resources, time, money, stress, right? Given that there is other avenues available to them. And that could be a real estate agent, it could be another investor, that could be another wholesaler, that could be doing it themselves, right? So, also known as your offer. Your offer ultimately needs to show, or whatever conversation you have, that needs to show that is that only one and necessary step for them to take action. So you create a lot of doubt, right? You create a lot of doubt because you ultimately understand what's their pocket between current state and desired state, right? So why would they even buy from you in the first place if they know there's solutions out there? Well, you tell them all the not only all the benefits that you can do as a whole as an investor, as a wholesaler, but your method, your process, your authority, your social proof. You ask them if they have this in place, right? You ask them questions where they can't really answer because they never did an investigation, they never did the research, they never really put together the dots and they connected the dots. But you are the one that know what needs to happen in order to sell a house. So you ask all the necessary questions to create that doubt inside of their head, and creating that doubt inside of the head by positioning yourself as that authority, as that only unique selling proposition that you have compared to other investors, compared to other realtors, compared to any other option that they have, creates a lot of doubt. And you have a unique mechanism, and you have a unique way of actually um, delivering value to them, and you do that by asking true questions, and then obviously doing your pitch, and giving a great offer. So that's the second one. The third one ultimately is cost. So the prospect must believe that doing nothing is far more painful than the investment in time and money to fix this problem. So this ultimately eliminates time objections and creates urgency. What does this mean? So the cost of not doing anything has nothing to do with price, but it costs of, so questions such as like, okay, so Mr. Prospect, Mr. Lead, um, if you continue this way, based on what you told me, that you really talked with five other investors, try your real estate agent, and 6 months past this, you haven't been able to sell your house. What do you feel is going to happen, right? What do you feel is going to happen if you ultimately don't make a decision in the next 3 months? How are things going to be for you? And ultimately, this creates a lot of um, cost. Well, what we're talking here, which is we have the perceived pain, for example, Here we have the current and future pain of doing nothing. Here is the pain of the time plus money of the investment, or just, the stress, that whatever it is, right? Because we're talking here about buyers, but ultimately sellers are buying on your service, right? And this is the action threshold, which is the line of ultimately doing absolutely nothing. So which means that right now, if they absolutely don't move forward with you during this call, all right, and they let that pass, they let that time pass, they do nothing at all, they continue with their pattern that they currently have, it's going to cost them way more than having to wait, or list it with an agent, or having to do it themselves, or checking out another investor, or um, looking for another offer, or just jumping into this other person that just texted them about their offer. So they must be able to believe that doing nothing with you is far more painful than the investment in time and money or resources and stress makes the problem, right? So that's the third one. The fourth one, it's going to be desire. So the prospect must believe solving the problem or the gap would yield a better future situation, which paint a future picture perfect island, or a heavenly island, or just some sort of paradise. So they need to understand that, and you need to ask questions about what they want ultimately, or what's going to happen when they sell their house, right? So we need to understand their future goals, and we need to understand what solving the problem actually does for them in a deep level. So if you were to sell the house, Mr. Prospect, and you want to sell it with us, um, I mean, what would you do with that money, right? Let's say they give you some money. Okay, what would you do with that money? What are you gonna do with that money? How's your life going to be like once you acquire that amount of money for your house? What is your life going to be like once you sell that property and you get rid of those problems, right? Tell me a little bit more about uh what's going to be happening the day that you sell the house, right? And this is a very emotional way of really connecting that gap, and asking the right questions, right? So the other one is money. Well, um, this is depends on like in the industry you are, and depends whether they're selling their house or they're buying from you or whatever. At the end of the day, they're buying your service. They're buying the trust that you're going to be able to solve the sell of their house, right? So the other one is money. So let's go back to the seven beliefs: pain, doubt, cost, desire, money, support, and trust. So let's go about number five. So the belief that the prospect has the resources and willingness to solve the problem, or the time and just the mental headspace to solve the problem, right? So if if we're talking here about selling their house, that means that the belief that regardless of the amount of money that they get from the offer, they have the willingness to actually solve the problem. And if someone was buying something from you that is expensive, um, regardless of whatever amount of value, or whatever service, whatever product we have, we need to understand that they have the resources, the willingness to solve this problem, regardless whether it costs them a lot of money, or whether they don't receive the amount of money that they necessarily wanted from the house, but they're willing to accept it because they have that willingness, right? They have that type of pain. They have that type of gap to be solved. So ultimately, we can always ask questions such as, I mean, like, Mr. Seller, I know you need to sell your house right now, but ultimately, what do you really, what how much do you really want? And let me just ask you a very honest question, Mr. Seller. Do you feel that you can even afford not getting this money in the next few weeks or few months, that this pain keeps increasing? Obviously, you're not going to say that, but that this thing continued this way, you have enough in your bank to even have the luxury of saying no to this offer that we're going to give you, or whatever offer we give you. Well, you know what, my willingness to solve the problem is far greater than the amount of money that I have to put in or I can accept, right? So that's one of the things that um, ultimately we need to uncover, right? The other thing is support or influencers or spouse, whatever, right? So the belief that people around them, people that influence them, will support them in fixing the problem and they will agree on whatever is that we have. That's why whenever we have spouse and partner objections, is because we just simply did not ask. So who are going to be helping you make this decision or influence you in making those decisions? And if they don't have, if those people are not in the call, then okay, why are we not having them in the call? Let's get them in the call. Um, what would they feel about this entire process? What would they feel about selling their house? Don't you feel like they also need to be part of this entire thing, right? So that one is support. The other one, the last one, it would be trust. So do they see your solution as clearly different? Is it a unique selling proposition? Are you selling your service the same way that other wholesalers are? Oh, it's just that I just give you an offer and that's about it. Or do you have a unique process, a unique mechanism, a unique value proposition? Maybe part of your process, you're figuring out what needs to happen right after the seller sells their house and help them solve that specific problem that just happened because they just sold the house. Maybe they need moving support, moving help, maybe not only selling their house, but also they need to actually travel somewhere. They need to make sure that someone is on board or whatever that is, right? So your process and your solution and your, yeah, just essentially your mechanism is superior than similar methods, since like there is a lot of wholesalers out there that they tried in the past. So ultimately understanding that when we uncover the trust objections, eliminates if you've been, I've been burned before. Some, wholesalers did wanted to do exactly the same thing. They said the exact same thing. They gave me a high amount of money, but then they decided to, lower the offer. And then a few days later, they decided to lower the offer once again. And then they just messed me up because they ended up taking longer and I did not sell my house. Well, you need to be able to uncover those type of things and help them logically tell themselves why this is going to be different, right? So it's a belief that you need to have. So are they bought into your method? Are they bought into the credibility, the social proof that you have, but also your method of doing things, of what success looks for once they actually have achieved selling their house in this case, right? So um that's why it's important for you to have a great pre-pitch and a great pitch so that you can ultimately give a great offer, right? But at the same time, ask questions that will check temperature, whether they trust that this is the best thing to do or not, right? The way that you actually build beliefs and ultimately uncover objections is by doing Socratic dialogue. So just think of, if you here it says, you can think of these beliefs like a checklist, and if we check the boxes of all of these before we transition into the close, chances are they're going to buy from you, or they're going to ultimately, in this case, sell their house to you. And the way that you do that is through Socratic dialogue, Socratic questioning. Like, okay, so there's, simple things that we can do, such as, let's take a look at this. Well, when you say this, what do you mean by that? Mirroring. Well, how big of a deal was that? I mean, how did that make you feel? How long have you been thinking about this? How long has this been happening in your life? How long has it been like this? Is there any reason, or like, why do you feel that this has happened for such a long time without change? Okay, so these are Socratic questionings that we ultimately want to find in the discovery process, and even during the pre-pitch, and do a few temperature checks during your pitch before you drop an offer, right? Before you drop any number. So those are ultimately the belief ladders. And let's just talk about here real quick here. So when you do get an objection, I learned this from Jeremy Miner. Um, I go for it. Best one. Can you show the dog with us? I would like going over to train. Great stuff in here. Yes, John, I'm gonna send this doc for you. Yeah. So when we do get an objection, which is a concern, something that you have not ultimately something that you have not ultimately addressed, right? You did not ask that question during the discovery call. Or maybe the concern is just price, right? Because it's almost always gonna be that way, right? Let me just go here real quick here to it's a little bit of a training. So objections, first and foremost, we truly must identify what the true meaning of the objection is. So what's a objection? What's a true objection, right? A true objection is something that is uncovered after we have actually asked sequential questions to what the first objection has been given. Because the first objection is never real. Why? Because buyers lie, sellers lie, right? So for example, unsophisticated buyers, they say, I need to think about it, which will be totally different from a sophisticated buyer saying, I need to think about it, right? So maybe that's how they truly make decisions, which is if let's say it's a sophisticated buyer versus an unsophisticated buyer. Let's just talk here in general. For example, there's three main type of objections ultimately. There's logistics. So in this case, if you're buying things, right, for example, whether you need to move money around, whether you need to like do a few things before this happens, whatever. There's timing about doing that exact thing that you're trying to sell them on doing. There is the I don't have $10,000 here, or there is, I just purely can't do it. Like I just can't accept that. Like this is just something that it doesn't make sense. Why? Because logistically, it just doesn't make sense. So it's purely logistical. There's no fear, and where the offer and where we offer solutions. Like, for example, here I'm talking here in terms of like products and services. But if we were to talk about sellers, or we were to talk about selling their house, an objection that is logistical is like, well, look at this. I have this house. I paid for this. And ultimately, um, I was given this offer by many different people that they were going to give me exact this amount, which makes total sense. And if I accept less than this, I'm just not going to be able to ultimately move forward with whatever it is that I had a plan on after selling their house. And that is like purely logistical. And ultimately you're going to find people like that, and that's a logistical type of objections. A smoke screens is basically a lot of bullshit that people really are telling you. So they're bullshitting you somewhere, and this means that you messed up somewhere on the call. Uh, and these are very tough to win because they're trying to make something up that is not real, but that's because you did not uncover either one of the seven beliefs. You didn't ask proper questions that really uncover everything that you need in order to fulfill their true desires, or really make sense out of continuously moving forward with you. And then they just decided to come up with something random. They just decided to like tell you something super random that has nothing to do with this. And there's the stalling. Be like, yeah, well, you know what, I prefer to wait a few days, wait a few weeks, wait a few months. I prefer to think about it, talk with my wife. I want to go and sleep on it. I want to pray on it. I would prefer to talk with these other investors that I have lined up as a call, things like that. When people give you a stall objections, honestly, it could be trust, could be fear of doing business with you, or just moving forward such a big decision in their life. Or it could be just something that is more miscellaneous. So when you understand that stall is happening, right? They don't want to move forward with this right now, right? Which is very typical, that people don't trust you, or people are have a lot of fear on moving forward with you, then you need to ultimately apply the framework. So any of this type of objections, you need to apply the framework. In my opinion, this will change the way that you even have conversations with others, or, in my opinion, this will even change on how you handle like very challenging situations. So let's go back to the entire nice guy negotiation. So when someone gives you an objection, so for example, well, you know what, man, thank you for this offer. I think that offer, is very generous. I see that you guys have helped a lot of homeowners, but I really need to think about it, right? That's just one example, right? Or they just gave you whatever objection. The first thing that you want to do, according to the nice guy negotiation process, is you want to clarify and understand really what they're saying. Remember that the first objection ultimately is surface level. It's not real. It's not true. It's just a surface level. So I need to think about it. For example, it's something you can handle, such as, hey, yeah, no problem. I get it, right? Look, if you guys put this in your dialect every single time that you guys get an objection, yeah, no problem. And then you go into clarify and understand, a lot of things are going to change. You're going to uncover the real objection, the real thing that they're saying, the real concern. So, what does that mean? When you say, yeah, no problem, okay, let's clarify. That's the next step. So, when you say that you need to think about it, so instead of saying, oh, what do you need to think about? What do you need to think about? Instead of saying that, which a lot of people just react that way, you say, okay, yeah, no problem. So when you say that you need to think about, what do you mean by that? And by literally saying, when you say whatever they just said, right? It could be like, let's say the objection is like, yeah, man, like I appreciate you, but the offer is really, really low. Mm, yeah, no problem. So when you say that the offer is really, really low, what do you mean by that? I mean, yeah, man, like you're giving me a lot less than other investors that have given me, or you're giving me a lot less that, Zillow says here. I really thought that it was going to be way more. I did my research before selling my house, and you're giving me all this crap. It's like, it's a no-no. Okay, gotcha. I understand. I understand that you did your research. I appreciate you telling me that that this is something near close with what you wanted, right? So here we're in the second part of this, which is appreciation and acknowledgement. And then you state your positioning and you reframe. So you need to get back your positioning. You need to get back your authority right after that. So that's where you get to ultimately uh, get permission to start either coaching them, start educating them, and reframing back to what makes sense. Because majority of the times, objections just don't make sense, right? So you, as a consultant, this is the salesperson, someone that wants to help them, want to reframing back into why it makes sense about doing something. So I'm just going to give you guys an example. All right, so yeah, I need to think about it. Well, when you say that you need to think about it, what do you mean by that? Well, yeah, man, honestly, I was not expecting that it was such a low cash offer. Okay, I understand. I appreciate you telling me that, honestly. You must have you must be saying something because of for a reason. Is that correct? Yes, I did my research. I know that I can get way more for my house. I have asked my real estate agents to help me give a some sort of appraisal and things like that. And it's just not something that I'm willing to accept because it needs to be way more. Okay, not a problem. Would you mind if I share some thoughts? Or would you mind if I kind of share a few things that we've learned about helping people like you that have been in the same situation that have a similar house to you? considering everything that you just told me about the property and everything that you just told me about you and your current situation, sure, the prospect says, well, looking at your property, we looked at your roof, we looked at this, your current situation. Um, let's say let's say they have no luxury of saying no because they just need to move out of the house because it's gonna fall apart, or let's say it's in foreclosure. Considering that you're gonna take all this ammunition that you just grabbed from Discovery, right? Considering they just told me this, considering this about the property, considering this and this, your property is not in a good shape to even get a large amount of cash offer that your real estate agent friends have actually told you. And as a matter of fact, when real estate agents do majority of this work, which not every real estate agent, majority of real estate agents are not the best ones to do this type of work because they don't know exactly what it needs to repair a house, things like that. They're gonna give you based on a retail price. But the problem is that your property has this to repair, has this problem, and you're currently in a situation that if you continue in that pattern, it's just going to become worse. Does that make sense? So when you say that, this is where you reframe. So when you say that, ultimately it's not going to get us anywhere. So let's just come up here with a win-win situation. Everything I'm trying to do here is to help you move forward with the sale of your house. So basically now what you have done is reframing this entire thing. You have handled this objection, and a lot of people are going to tell you things that they think is true, but it's not. It's just you know it's just their inner voice telling, just telling an immediate answer. And there's so many ways to actually go about this. So clarify and understand, appreciation, acknowledge, state your position, reframe, and then ask them how they would like to proceed, whether they want to proceed with this offer or so on. And you guys can always end up negotiating back into maybe something that is a win-win situation for them. But always grab your ammunition that you have gathered from your discovery process, which is all the 7 beliefs, right? Plus condition of the property and so on, in order to essentially just get back to your frame. You need to get back to your frame. So there's other examples on how you ultimately would want to clarify about what an objection is, or what the real objection is. All right, yeah, no problem. Well, how do you mean by that? Or I'm not quite sure I understand. What do you mean when you say this or when you say that? Can you explain to me more in detail? I don't quite follow, right? This is a very confused tone where ultimately helps you get more from the person. And actually, if you guys follow Jeremy Miner, he talks about this all the time, because we know that objections and the first objections are not real. They're just lies, or they're not really telling you the truth, right? So that's why when clarification happens, um, you're going to have the ability to get deeper into that, right? When you appreciate and you acknowledge, this is acting as empathy. And when you get permission to reframe or to coach or to educate, you first have to get permission, first of all, to educate people, to coach people. Then you can restate your opinion or reframe or handle that objection by telling them facts, logics. Ultimately, you can, get a grab back some emotional state that they are in and remind them about that emotional state that they're in, because maybe they're in a pattern of not making the right decision about selling their house, and you want to help them get outside of that pattern of not making the right decision, because they're continuously stalling, or they continuously just thinking that that's the right way of doing it when it's not, right? So it's a very, very simple way to see it, and this framework ultimately helps you get more from the objection that you have. Because why? Objections are genuine concerns. You got to pick up the shovel and you got to dig deep to find concerns. So what their concern may be, maybe is different for everyone. It's a matter of you being in a shovel. The treasure is the clothes, and X marks the spot. X is where it's buried. So you need the X where you guys have a shovel, and imagine a shovel and X. That's ultimately where you need to go about it. You need to just keep peeling the onion, because you're gonna find the truth. You're gonna find exactly what is happening, and you're gonna ensure that when you ask questions and reveal the real truth, they're gonna just feel dumb for saying it, right? There you go. So the whole idea is to really avoid getting objections in the first place. But either way, it's going to happen. So the discovery call, let's call it this intro, discovery call, whatever, is where you get all this from them, right? You get majority of the objections already removed, all the deal killers that could potentially happen, right? So, um, there's several reasons that I wrote down here, that ultimately make you understand why sometimes objections happen. They've been burned in the past. They don't trust you. They don't like you. They don't really can't afford doing whatever or accepting the offer with you or something like that. This is just pure sales. This is just pure, helping people and leading someone towards the entire conversation. The best way to overcome sales objections, we're going to talk about this real quick, is one, practice active listening. Two, you want to repeat back what you hear, mirror, mirror, mirror. I want you guys to listen and read Never Split the Difference, which is a book. And that helps you really understand a few things that we just covered, such as like what Jeremy Miner said, right? Which is the clarification when you say this, repeat what they just said. What do you mean by that? And that first one, when you guys say, what do you mean by that, will help you really uncover the real thing on many different things that happen, even in your day-to-day life, right? When you go to your wife and they say like, I don't know, uh, I'm not, I'm not mad. I just want you to do this. And be like, okay, well, you say that you're not mad and then you want me to do this. What do you mean by that? Right? Like that's just one quick example, right? So, and then they're gonna tell you the, some other truth, or they want to ultimately, just continuously talking about what the real problem is in that situation. You want to be able to validate your prospects' concerns. You want to ask follow-up questions. You always want to leverage social proof. So there's one thing that you guys want to do at the beginning, is you want to create your pitch with a lot of social proof. Like there's a lot of competitors out there, right? So if you don't tell how many homeowners you have helped, even if you have that as a vision and you're just starting out, and you could create some sort of social proof by, you've helped other homeowners through JVs, you've helped other homeowners, by giving value, or you've helped actually other homeowners by, buying their house or wholesaling the house, and you want to be able to you want to be able to put that proof in your entire sales pitch, in entire objection handling, because that social proof could be a third party story. So for example, you could enhance that objection that just happened, be like, hey, look, we helped a homeowner, Mary, get outside of this situation. She knew that she was in a pattern of uh, having to sell her house. She tried a bunch of times with real estate agents. Nothing was happening, was not able to sell their house. And then she realizes really quickly that with us and then our unique method of doing things, she was able to get outside of that problem, but also we even helped her move out of state. We even got her a very cheap car for her to, continue her path in that new state, whatever. All of that is a third party story. Like all of that is social proof. Like social proof ultimately is third party stories. This is honestly like such an extent, it would be such an extended training if we go very deep into third party stories or leveraging social proof to handle objections or even to pre-handle objections. Um, and another thing is set a specific date and time for follow-up. You definitely want to follow up, but you definitely want to challenge people's beliefs before they come, get out of the call, because sometimes objections happen because they have a specific belief. But if you do the framework, right, where you reset the frame and ultimately show, you clarify, you understand, you acknowledge, um, what is it? You clarify, you understand, you acknowledge, you state your position, reframe by requesting permission about, saying, what's your, um, uh, how do you how you see things and why things don't make sense. Ultimately, that is changing a belief. That is ultimately helping the client, your seller, make a better decision by you doing this proper process. Okay. And the last one is obviously anticipate sales objections, which is uncovering them, which is basically what I just said here in the entire video, right? That you do that during the discovery process. So we have here Jesse that he's gonna be coming in here real quick. Jesse had something going on with his computer, and his computer isn't, you know, doesn't have the ability to start Zoom or something like that. So I don't know if he's gonna be able to come. Let me just call Jesse. Let's call Jesse right away. Maybe he can join as a call. Let's call Jesse. Oh yeah, you were able to fix that? All right, man. For sure. Let's jump in. Yeah, let's do it. Yeah, let's do it. All right, bye. All right. Jesse's coming in here. Um, so from John, Adrian, Jose, so understanding that framework and understanding that, handling the objections previously to just dropping your offer is huge. But also understanding the seven beliefs, understanding, the objection handling framework from people like Jeremy Miner. Um, what do you guys think about that so far? And I mean, what questions do you guys have regarding objections? If you guys
Hey
have questions.
Seven. Hey
Yeah.
Seven. Nice to meet you. My name is John. Well, it was actually great. Going over um these these objections. Once again, I've been working in this wholesaling company in which I think I've stopped doing that training. So I feel like it's good to be reviewing this stuff, and I got some notes, and what interested me the most was the way of you using the whole belief ladder uh, to bring that leverage at some point in the call. Um, like this is something I've never used, and I think it was just great. I even wrote it down when you told them like considering this and that, what your real estate agent friends tell you, they don't know these things, and such and such, letting them know that the actual value, but first getting that permission in order to to be able to advise them on on their objections, and their issues.
Yeah, I mean, remember the guys that, what the last thing that you said, that really no one wants to really be coached or be told what to do, or no one really wants to be challenged without really accepting that they're going to be challenged. A lot of that, most of the time, people are going to be on the defensive mode. So if you coach them, or try to pre-frame without really requesting permission, they're
All
just
right.
going to be having a defensive mechanism in there. They're just gonna put their walls up. But if you tell them, hey, can I share a few things that I've learned after helping 100 homeowners, get outside of situations similar to you, and that have successfully sold their property through our method, through our company. Okay, sure, tell me. All right, boom. And then that on that time, you're ultimately are going to challenge them or are going to pre-frame it, reframe it, going to tell them exactly why logically this doesn't make sense, go back and grab some of the ammunition that you got from the discovery process, from the facts that you told them about, they told you about the property, from the facts that you told them about their current situation, and where they are right now in terms of selling their house, why important that it is for them, and so on. So that is, really crucial step, which is requesting permission. Jesse
Correct.
just joined.
Thank you, Simon.
Yes, sir. Jean. What's up, Jesse?
Hey, what's up, man? How are you?
Good man.
Awesome.
All's
Yeah,
good?
just
Good?
yeah, man. If we're gonna do this still tonight, we gotta get this thing going ASAP. I've had an insane day. I'm not trying to snap on you, but I'm literally walking in my door right now from walking out at 7 a.m. So if we're gonna do this, let's get it rolling.
Yeah, no problem. So I just did like an entire walkthrough of essentially how to handle objections. So
Hmm.
we did the walkthrough. Um, hold on, give me a second. We did the walkthrough using the nice guide negotiation from Jeremy Miner, which is when they give you an objection, you want to clarify exactly what it is because the first objections are not real. It's just something that they're saying as the first thing, but there's something behind. So you want to clarify and understand what's going on. You want to acknowledge what they just said, and then you want to state your position, your reframe. So we just talked about that. We also talked about how the best way to handle the objections is to pre-handle the objections, right?
Yeah,
The best way
absolutely.
to handle the objections is to really, in the discovery portion, you handle you ask questions that could uncover um, different deal killers that could ultimately happen. So we were just talking about that. Maybe what we can do, you and I here right
I,
now.
I was gonna say, I mean, the thing about that is, something we were talking about yesterday on the conversion training call is, I was just kind of talking to some of the people that, in my opinion, a lot of times the best approach is understanding how we're going to tailor the discussion based on the specific person. And a lot of times I think when people are brand new, that's one of the things that they struggle with and they have some difficulties with is figuring out how to delve into that conversation. I know a lot of times when we get on the phone with sellers, even though they've filled up the ad and we hope that they're a motivated person, sometimes they're just not that forthcoming with the information. So they give us resistance. And in reality, it's not that they're resisting us. They're not saying no to us. They're just missing the K and the W. They don't know enough about what we're trying to do because we don't know enough about their specific problem or situation. And it's especially easy when you're talking about like online conversion marketing because the one thing that I've always found that really helps me is just asking the person once we get through the hey, my name is, they've already gotten a few text messages usually by that point. Even though sometimes they're just automated messages from the CRM. So a lot of times how I like to kind of start that conversation off is, once I'm familiar and I have Esteban's name and Esteban has mine, a lot of times I like asking him, Esteban, if you don't mind me asking, I know it's a silly question, but what in the world made you click on the ad on Facebook? And I let them start to talk. And through that discussion, they're going to start to not only let me know the situation, but they're going to give me the why, right? Because really, that's how we're going to convert it from just a person that wants to, find out what kind of offer they could get. And we're going to be able to discover if it's actually a motivated seller or if it's just a window shopper. If it's a window shopper, there's nothing wrong with that. We can still sometimes turn those leads into manageable and workable leads and deals, right? And we might pick up some profit from them. But we also need to know if it's a super motivated seller because there's an existential reason why they're having to sell their home, right? And especially like this time of the year, you'll start getting people that are tax delinquent. I know, especially in the Northeast, this is when they start sending out like delinquency notices. And some people, like in my state, they have 3 years until the courts can even take any action against them. But I have had plenty of leads come in before where the person's 1 year behind on their taxes. In fact, it's literally a lead I'm working right now. She's 1 year delinquent on her taxes, got her certified mail saying as a notice that she's delinquent, and this woman's panicking. And that's her why is she, I got on the phone with her originally, but as I asked her, what made you click on the ad? Why would you do this? If you don't mind me asking, how come you're not selling with a realtor? There's a million different ways you could sell a property. Do you mind explaining to me why you're thinking this might be the best way? And through my why questions of why is she clicking on the ad? Why would she want to sell her house this way? Why does she want a cash offer? Why is there a need to sell the home quickly? Through that, I'm going to find out everything I need to know to be able to structure a deal and put together a deal that I can work properly. And once I structure it and I put together a deal that I can work properly and figure out where my price is, then I can execute on the lead so much easier because it's then much easier to figure out how we can solve their problem, right? The reality is sometimes guys, and I'm not just trying to talk here, but sometimes we don't always get the perfect lead. And it doesn't matter how you're doing it, whether it's cold calling, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, referrals. Sometimes we get the lead of the person that's literally there's no motivation. They don't care. They just want to know what they could sell their house for. And that doesn't mean that they're not a good possible deal. They're certainly not a motivated seller. They have no why, right? But we can still work them with the same intent, the same deliberate, intentions and attitude where we're going to expect to be able to put a deal together from it because ultimately something made that person react to the ad. Esteban would be much better versed to talk on that than I ever could, but something made them interact, just like everything that you guys have ever bought off Facebook before, or any type of online thing. Something made you decide to make that purchase, to trust in them enough, to be willing to fill in your information, even if it was with autofill. There was something that created that desire, and then your actions of you clicking on it and filling out the information or putting in your credit card number were you taking action on your desires. So even when we get those types of leads in of people and we're trying to have that exploratory part of the conversation in the beginning, we're talking to them, we're finding out their name. We can't ever forget that until we figure out the why, even if it's a person, oh, my house is paid off. I don't know anything. I saw the neighbor's house sold for a bunch of money. Just wanted to see what we could get. There's still some type of desire there. It doesn't mean we'd be able to turn it into a good deal, but there's enough desire there that created an interest that he was willing to take action on. And that's really what the front part of the conversation is about when we're talking about the script. That's really what we're getting into is the why. We're trying to figure out how we can uncover whatever it is that's creating that thought in this person's mind
One
of
thing that
selling.
one thing that I see a lot of people actually struggling is like if a lead comes in from, let's say, Google or Facebook, and they're asking like, okay, give me the price, give me the offer that what's the number you're gonna give me for my house right away? Like I just want the offer. What's the number? Give me the number, right? Well, you don't know what they're telling it. They're asking that question. You ultimately would believe that this person is not motivated because they're going straight for wanting to know the offer, wanting to know what's the number or price, whatever. There's something behind there. It could be that maybe they're just sick and tired of so many wholesalers giving them like low ball cash offers, sick and tired of like bullshit people. They don't understand something, and because there's an always a why, always reframing in that situation to then start asking them the why, it's very important. So no problem. Look, we have many ways to buy houses. We buy a house for cash. I don't know how much I'm gonna be giving you for a house. I have very little information about your property and your current situation. However, I'd like to ask you a few questions, just to see if it even makes sense for us to work together and put together an offer that makes sense for you and it's a win-win. So if you don't mind me asking, I'll, or you can then ask for agreement, be like, does that make sense? Or like, sounds good. Then you kind of start asking questions about that. So, or you kind of start asking questions about, what's making even them book an appointment, or, fill out a form or sell their property or wanting to sell their property. And then you can start diving deep into it, right? So just because people, are asking for a price or asking for the offer right away doesn't mean that they're not motivated. You just have to learn how to handle that objection, or just learn how to handle that and reframe back into your positioning.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, a lot of times if somebody tries to get to the price right away with me, I'll usually just answer them with, "Hey, Esteban, that's a great question. And I totally understand why you would ask me that. You're kind of like a no nonsense guy. You like to get to the point. Unfortunately, there's just so many variables that go into exactly what we would offer for a property. And like I was trying to say earlier, a lot of times properties don't even fit the criteria that we're looking to buy in. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to ask you a couple quick questions. I'll make it super fast. Find out a little bit about the property, see if we can at least get it pre-qualified for an offer. Is that fair?
Yeah.
And literally, guys, all we're talking about is the same as what it's saying on the outline that Esteban was showing on screen a couple minutes ago. Is when they give pushback about something, all you're doing, agreeing with them, right? You're restating and clarifying it, and then you're moving on. You're handling the objection and just moving on to the next subject. Now, the problem that a lot of times people will make is they'll go to try and think, all right, I need to be active listening. I need to ask questions. And they're thinking about all this stuff. And then all of a sudden they get on the phone with an Esteban who's like, look, man, I don't have time for this. Just, I want to know how much you'll give me for the house. And instead of saying, okay, I got a little bit of a live bull on my hands here, let me grab him by the horns and wrestle him to the ground, they just say, oh, I'm out of the arena. And they say, oh, okay, thanks. And they hang up, and then they message their CSM and is like, hey, that Esteban guy, he was a nut. He doesn't want to sell his house. It wasn't that he was a nut. He was just a little bit more maybe abrasive or confrontational on the phone. But again, it's not that he's saying no to you. He doesn't know enough, right? We don't know enough yet. So you just have to regain control of that. And, even if as you go through, even if I would say, Esteban, not a problem. I just need to find out a little bit of information, see if I can pre-qualify you. Do you mind if I ask you just a few really quick questions? He'll usually say no. Say, first thing, great. Okay, first question, Esteban. I already know going into it if it's a single family home, a multi-family house, or I'm pulling it up actively. So a lot of times when we talk about those, let's ask some qualifying questions, it's really fluff. It's creating that need for the seller to feel like they're qualifying to be able to get business with us. And again, that's all about control. We're regaining that control of that situation. So when we have somebody push into us like that, like what Esteban was saying, all we want to do is clarify the objection. And if anything, I maybe would ask him, like, hey, not a problem. Is this just because you only want a number just because you're curious, or are you actually serious about selling? Sometimes they'll say, oh, I'm just curious. And I'll say, oh, okay, not a problem. And I'll leave it just at that. Oh, okay, not a problem. That was just 8 seconds of silence. Usually sellers don't last that long. Usually a seller will be like, why, is that an issue? And again, I'm going to regain control. And sometimes I'll be like, well, I mean, typically we only talk to people that are serious. And it'll be like, not 99.9% of the time, they always come back with, well, I am serious, right? And it's because you're taking away from them something. So if I take away the toy, they want it back, right? Hey, are you asking Esteban because you're serious about selling, or are you just curious? Well, I'm curious. Oh, okay. And he'll fire, why does that matter? Well, normally I only talk to people that are serious about selling. I mean, I don't want to waste my time and I don't want to waste yours. So are you really trying to sell the property or not? And usually they come back with, well, yeah, I want to sell it. Okay, do you mind if I ask why? Again, all we're doing is just always taking back control of the conversation. Because if we don't, that's where you start to get really sidetracked. But go on, Esteban. What were you saying the next thing was?
No, I think that was it. Honestly, like I've been here for quite some time, and I think this was pretty good. I know that you have.
If you don't mind, I'm going to give you guys a couple real quick closes, okay? Like live objections and how I closed them, just on a few of the last leads that I've been working. So,
Which ones?
I'm working a lead right now that the woman started, gorgeous house, right? House 7 doors up, just sold for 279, right? So I'm looking at an ARV of at least 280,000. That one did have an extra half bathroom in a single car garage. This has a dual car garage. That lot is a little bit nicer than this one, in my opinion. At least it looks nicer. So the woman knows that the neighbor's house already sold for 275, 279. She knows how long it was on the market for. She knows everybody in the neighborhood. So the woman bought the house with her husband back in 1988. They paid $63,000 cash for it. She's lived there ever since, right? So I get on the phone with her, talking, find out that reason she wants to sell is she feels as though she is a real wooded lot, a pretty secluded area, and it's too much maintenance for her. Since her husband passed away, it's just her. She tried having one of her sons move back in with her. She called him a deadbeat and a degenerate. And he said he doesn't take care of the lawn the way that her ex-husband did, or her deceased husband did. So we're talking. I set up an appointment to go down and look at it. I'm expecting where it was, the condition. I couldn't really find any photos of it online at all. It's never been listed on the market because they built and bought it brand new. So all I could see was a tax assessor's photo. Google Street View, there is no such thing in this area. But I knew that the house up the street sold for 279. So I go there thinking this place might look like it's straight out of the 1980s. We're going to see what happens. But before I went there, I got her to tell me that if it was a perfect situation, a perfect world, she would want to get $225,000 for the house. And her justification for that was you could buy it and clean up the yard and resell it, and you'll be able to make $50,000, right? But for me, that's not necessarily a deal. Just with the cost of money and everything like that, even though I like flipping properties. So the $50,000 profit, if that's really what it would be, was appealing, but it wasn't great. So I had told her before I came down, I said, typically we buy homes in that area for between 120 and 160,000. I said, with that knowledge in mind, would you still want me to come out and see the property? She said, well, I want you to at least come look. So I was expecting, with her saying that she wanted me to come look at that low of a number, that I was probably going to walk into a hot mess. Instead, I walked into a house that has a roof that was put on in 2022, new siding and windows in 2019. She had her kitchen redone in 2023. New granite countertops, gorgeous new bathroom. Everything in the house is brand new, right? Literally remodeled top to bottom. She has emphysema. She's a lifelong smoker. She quit, but it's obviously affecting her health now. She feels embarrassed. Her why, her motivation was that her husband would be disappointed with how the yard looks. I'm not joking with you. That's her motivation that she wants to sell. She just said, if Gary was still here, he'd be turning over in his grave, seeing how this yard looks. And she said, that was my husband's pride and joy. And I've just realized I can't deal with it. So it's time to let it go. So I'm like, okay, awesome. So we start talking. going back and forth with numbers. Hey, I can't, we're back and forth. I get her to where she comes down to 200,000. And I told her that our offer was at 135. She's like, absolutely no, shuts me down. No, look, sorry, thanks for your time, not interested. So I tried to pull her back in. I said, hey, remember a second, Deb. I said, remember when I was at your house? I said, what did I do? I looked you straight in the eye when we were on the front porch. Do you remember what I said? Do you remember what I told you? She said, yeah, I remember. I said, can you repeat it back to me? Because whenever I meet somebody, I say, you got to remember something. This is the most important thing. And I flare my eyes and I change the tone of voice. And I said, I said, you got to remember something. It's me and you on the same team here. I said, it's me and you against them. I said, I'm battling the finance manager, the owner of the company, and everybody else to fight for every nickel, dime, and penny you deserve on this house. I said, so no matter what, if I come back with an offer that doesn't work, you can't shut me down, because that's just maybe the starting point. So let's see what we can do. So when she tried to shut me down on the phone, I brought her right back to that. Deb, do you remember what we talked about? Yes. I said, what did I say? I said, I'm going to fight for us. I said, because this is how I make my living. I only get bonus if I buy houses. I said, and I want to be able to take my family to Disneyland. I want to be able to go out to a steak dinner. So help me help you, Deb. Don't shut me down. And she was like, well, go back to him and see if you can get him up. I'll take 185. So boom, she just chopped another 15 grand off her price, right? So now we're at 185. So I call her back, Deb, good news, bad news. What is it? The good news is I was able to get him up significantly. The bad news is I wasn't able to get him to the 185. So we ended up going back and forth a little bit. And I ended up telling her that the offer was at 158, as I think what I said the offer came up to. So she's like, oh, Jesse, you have my hopes up. And I'm going back and forth with her and back and forth with her. So I said, Deb, you got to give me some reasons here. Like, you got to help me help you. So then all of a sudden she comes out with, well, my daughter owns a cleaning company. I said, oh, okay. She said, what about if I could have my daughter willing to clean 10 properties for you guys? So now she's trying to bargain with me on other people's labor. I said, Deb, we can't negotiate with your daughter's work ethic, anything like that. I said, we can only negotiate with money. I said, but Deb, here's the one thing. I said, do you remember when we were in person and we were talking about how life passes you by so quick? She said, yeah. And I said, we were talking about how you met your husband out in California. You guys came to the East Coast together on a complete whim. He took a job. You guys moved cross country to take a chance. I was like, and the thing is with that, you created your life story, right? And from that life story, you now have 3 children. You have 5 grandchildren. I said, in all that time, what Gary held near and dear to his heart was his love for you and his love for this property. I said, I don't want something as silly as money to stand in the way from me making that property look as proud and as gorgeous as Gary would want it to. And she's like, yeah, I know. As soon as she said that, yeah, I know, I knew that I had a deal on the line. Because I said, Deb, listen, sometimes in life, opportunity knocks. And when opportunity knocks, you need to answer the door. You have a great opportunity here. I said, before I give you the number, I said, at this point, Deb, I've twisted every arm I could. I've broken every bone that I could break for these guys. I said, I need you to understand. If you wouldn't accept this next offer, I literally wouldn't know what to do, because in the world of cash offers, you don't get better than this. And this is a woman that had Eric Brewer's company come into her house and offer 195 grand on novation, right? I'm battling against a dude that she just had at her house the week before. I watched the Ring video camera of him. So this woman's been entertaining wholesalers already in other cash offer companies. I said, Deb, you said that you didn't like the novation idea, so you wanted to go another route. I said, you said you don't like the realtor idea, so you wanted to go another route. I said, so now we've gone down this route together. Help me help you. If I can do 170,000, and I promise to make this place look just as gorgeous as what Gary would want it to, can we go ahead and move forward? And she said, well, you got one thing going for you. Said, you are a talkative son of a bitch. And I was like, exactly, Deb, because I don't want to lose this deal. And she ended up taking a real deep breath, let out a sigh, and said, so what do the numbers look like? And that's exactly when I knew I had it. I ended up sending her over a contract, an agreement of sale at like 3:30 this afternoon. She does not have a smartphone. She's that old school. She doesn't have like anything. She has a jitterbug flip phone. But she went over to her neighbor's house and saw it, signed it. Then I realized I have it dated as 2023. So I'm gonna go down tomorrow and get better pictures and just have her sign one in person. But guys, that's when we talk about like objection handling. That's really what we're talking about, is just plowing through the stuff, plowing through the nose, throwing an offer out there, letting them talk to you, letting them tell you, no, that number can't work. Because nowhere in that negotiation or conversation with her did I ever get discouraged, upset, dissuaded, anything like that. So I have it under contract at 170. I already have one person that offered me 188 for it. I'm probably not going to take it. Again, everything that's the gorgeous thing about this business, guys, is you can literally create the life in the business that you want. I like flipping properties. I like wholesaling stuff too. I love to wholesale, but I love flipping on big margins. So I'm getting this thing for 170. My money costs and everything, I'm going to be into it for 180. I just found a paving company today that gave me a good quote for 11,000. I have my painter that's going to paint the inside of it, and my landscape guy is going to dress up the outside some. I'm going to be all into the thing at 196 grand, and I'm going to list it for sale for 279. It's not going to be a home run deal. I'll probably end up netting 65K on it, but that's what makes the business fun. It's not like it's going to be something that I'm going to write home about and retire from, but I genuinely feel like I helped that woman and I did good by her. And I made her feel like we were doing right by her and she was doing right by us. It was a good give and take. And that's all. But if you guys want to throw some objections at me and just have me give you a quick close for them, I don't mind that. I'm always down for that. You guys can just put them in the chat if you want to. Give me any objection. It doesn't really matter. Like, let's go through this one. I need to think about it. Hey, Jesse, I appreciate your offer, but I just need to think about it. Esteban, totally understandable. In fact, I think you were kind of crazy if you didn't think about an offer with this much money. Do you mind if I ask you some questions, though, Esteban? Well, listen, just because a lot of times, what I've found is when I'm talking to people, they'll say, like, I have to think about it. And I believe everybody. I would never think that somebody's lying to me. And after this long on the phone, I hope you would never lie to me, Esteban. But, when you start thinking about it, we wouldn't be on the phone. And as you start to think about it, like, I wouldn't be able to answer any questions that, like, as they come to your mind. So why don't we just go ahead and talk about it now? Like, what exactly is it that you would think about? Is it the down payment? Is it the price? Is it the terms? Because, you could tell me that you don't like me. You could tell me my breath stinks. You don't like bald guys. You could tell me anything we want, but you can't tell me that's not a great offer. So, Esteban, what I'm really asking you is, what is it that we would have to think about? Or is it just that we need to feel like we made a good decision for ourselves? And again, I'm going to take that objection away from him. Sometimes they say, well, hey, Jesse, I appreciate it. Oh, here's one that I dealt with recently. I was on the phone with the woman. Her husband's deployed overseas, right? Military. They have an investment property they wanted to sell. The property that I bought, a realtor called me with it. It was an expired listing that the realtor had. He was trying to sell it because the woman would not budge on price. I knew that I could have sold this thing for the guy on market if he would have just called me. I just never really saw it, and it's outside of the area where I buy rentals. So it wasn't something I was looking for. So this realtor calls me. He's like, hey, man, I got your name from somebody else, wondering if you'd have any interest in this. No, not really. And then he told me the backstory, what was going on. The husband's deployed. He wants her to sell it. She's not willing to negotiate on price, blah, 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 blah. So I end up getting on the phone with her as the seller. We get down to everything. I end up, they had it listed for 185,000. I get her to agree to, she already comes down by the time we're talking on the phone. She's like, look, I'll do 165,000. I can't do any more. I had a buyer for it lined up at 175, but I wanted to be able to net 20 on it for myself. So I had to get her down from her number at least 10 grand more, if not more than that. It was literally a pretty turnkey place. Like she had a product that could have probably gotten sold with just a better realtor. So anyways, I'm talking to the woman and we get down to it and I offered her 135,000. And she was like, no, absolutely not. And I told her flat out from the get go, look, I'm probably not going to be the end buyer. I'm a landlord, but not in this area. It's not really my forte, but I know people that would buy it. And I explained to her kind of how a wholesale situation would work. So, anyways, she says no to that. And I just threw a number out there and I was like, what if we could do 150? If I could do 150, would you be willing to do it? And that's when she hit me with the, well, I don't know. I would have to talk to my husband. Okay, when can you talk to your husband? Can we call him now? No, I can't call him now. And she explains to me how he's over in Africa on a some type of deployment for the army. And so we're talking back and forth about that. And she wouldn't get off the husband thing. And I finally said to her name's Kim. I said, Kim, do you mind if I ask you why? You've said several times now that you'd have to talk to your husband, but you tell me everything else about the property. I said, in fact, I've been doing this for a long time, Kim, and the only reason that I've ever found that a woman would feel like she has to talk to her husband or her spouse, it's not because he doesn't trust you. He trusts you, doesn't he? Yeah, he trusts me. And I mean, I'm sure he believes what you say and like what you do. You said you've been married for 20 years. Oh, yeah. That's not an issue at all. I said, exactly. And the reason I ask you that is because if he trusts you and he believes you, then Kim, don't you think that he's going to trust that you made the right decision and he's going to believe that you did what's best for the family? In fact, I'd be willing to bet he'd almost be more upset if you didn't go with the deal. Why don't we show him that you're just as good of a businesswoman as he is a businessman? Don't worry him with the details. Let's just call him and say, hey, honey, good news. I sold the investment property. Again, I listen for their breathing. I listen for how they react. And when I heard the, well, you're right. It would probably be a lot less stress if he knew we just sold it. And I didn't even wait for a yes. I said, awesome. What's your email, Kim? She gave me her email. I could look it up in my CRM. I said, okay, great. Can you do me a favor? Pull up your email. I'm going to send you an agreement right now. I filled it out real fast, just a standardized agreement, send it over to her. She docu-signed it. And we closed the deal like a week and a half later. I put it under contract. She ended up coming back and asking, could I do 155? We settled, I put it under contract at 152 and I wholesaled it at 175. So again, those are like, not saying that that's extra smooth or eloquent closing, but that's kind of the easy stuff. That's just listening to their objections and giving them something witty in return. The hard part, guys, is digging in and having the conversation to where you find out the husband's deployed in Africa. He's been over there for 7 months. She wants to sell the house because they're having a new baby and they're trying to, do this, that, and the third. So that's where the real value of the conversion calls come in. That's where you actually make your money, is through that relationship and that connection that you can have with the seller.
Anyone have any questions to Jesse or anything that you guys want to clarify? We don't have Jesse every day, right? So
I know.
Ask questions.
And I apologize, Esteban, guys, just so you know, it was not that I was not trying to be on here. Esteban knows I've been dealing with something for like the last 6 months in my personal life. And tonight was something where I had to go to a certain event to finally kind of close this chapter out once and for all. So I sincerely apologize for getting on here so late and not being on here from the get-go. But Esteban, finally that shit is behind me. So that's a huge weight off my shoulders.
I want to ask you guys so we're gonna be actually in Ryan Pineda's event at WealthCon Las Vegas, and we're going to sponsor when we're going to actually design some shirts. Please, between all of you guys that are, just not many in here, tell me the truth. And also, Jesse, I want you to tell me the truth. Like, should I wear this? Should I even print it and wear this? Yes or no?
Oh
Uh,
gosh.
watch this, watch this. So, we have a company called Remote Latinos, right?
Yeah.
It,
Yeah.
it places remote Latino virtual assistants, remote team members, and so on. Look at that. Look at that. Look at this. Protect our borders, hire remote Latinos. Is that too much?
It's too much. Literally, my flooring guy just called, and I'm not even bullshitting you. My flooring guy, Isaac and I use the same flooring guy. He called us today from an immigration detention center, and he's like, "Hey, I'm really sorry, I'm not going to be able to finish your job." I was like, "What's going on?" He's like, "Yeah, I was in the country illegally." He's like, "And they picked me up last night, so I'm getting deported." So,
Yeah, I mean, like,
I don't
I've
know, man. All I'm
I,
gonna say is
I've
I've been
hired
to
two,
I've been to Vegas a lot of times. You might seriously upset some hospitality workers on that joint.
I have hired two deported people, and they're incredible. I
Yeah,
currently have them on my team,
yeah.
and they're incredible. Uh,
Well, if you know anybody in Paraguay looking for a dude that's a beast at putting in hardwood floors, I got your guy. He's coming to you.
there you go, man. Put them in the Remote Latinos roster. We're gonna give him a job. I
I don't
guarantee
know.
a job after he gets home.
I don't know
You
if
know?
he knows how to use a computer. I'm not joking. Like, I was like, well, he's like, oh, don't worry. I was laughing. I was like, I mean, we were on a recorded call from the jail, and I was like, damn, his name's Rusbel. I was like, damn, Rusbel, I'm really sorry to hear that. He's like, it's all good, man. I'll see you in like 4 or 5 months. I was like, oh, okay.
Whenever it comes
But
out.
God bless America.
Yeah, I know. All right, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed it. You guys are gonna get the recording inside the objection handling, objection challenge area on school, and everyone follow Jesse Bush on social media. I forgot what his social media is, but yes,
I've,
Jesse.
yeah, it's Jesse Bush on Facebook and Jesse B Sales Pro on Instagram.
There you go.
Esteban, real quick, can you send the slides you went over today, the points, talking points
Yes.
as well?
Yeah, I'll send it. I'll send it to you guys.
Thanks.
It's guys, also just so you know, what Esteban was going over is found in the Hessel Media vault. If you log on to hesselmedia.com and you go through the vault, there is tons of value in there. You guys are really missing out if you don't look over the value that you guys can get just from that. There's lots of great masterminds, people like Rich Wonders in there talking about novations, how it was a huge game changer for them. You've got literally all sorts of stuff that you can find in there, from contracts to help to deal negotiations to everything. So tell your family, tell your friends, tell a neighbor, even tell your enemies. If they want to learn how to get into the wholesale business, they need to contact Hessel Media and get access to that, because there is really a ton of value in there.
Yes, sir. Well, all right. Thank you guys.
See you guys.
And have a great weekend. Bye-bye.
Yes. Carlos, thanks for being Carlos, as always.
All right.
See ya.
guys.